After killing 4 people, the question is, why didn't he kill Dylan?
Yes.
I think, and so if you ever even had a desire to take a jury out there, like they did with Parkland, which I'll never forget that day when they took the jury members out there and they had the 2 representatives from the press corps that walked through it. That place was frozen in time. It was that important to them at that moment in time.
They did that with Murdoch too.
Yeah, they did. They
Yeah.
preserved everything.
Yeah.
And I've been involved in cases where the jury was taken out to scenes. It doesn't happen every time. It's a pain in the butt. Defense attorneys, well, prosecution hates it too, and this is why. Because if you're questioning somebody before a jury in this kind of protected environment, which court is, you control the dialogue. People that walk into an environment like this, you can't control their inner dialogue or what their assessment is. You know, they're looking at everything and they're taking it all in, and you can't say yay or nay either way to them. They're observing this place, and I think that attorneys absolutely, they do not welcome these opportunities to take juries out there and revisit these places. So it just seemed as though that it was an unreasonable risk to take when there was no need to take that risk at all, that they should have just let the structure intact. And I never could balance that in my mind, but they took it down. They took it down to the ground, man. I mean, it's gone.
Yeah. I kind of wonder, because that does make sense to me, that you would wait until the case is over to do something like that. Because it also makes total sense that in the middle of a college campus where they're supposed to be happy kids in the time of their life, you know, you don't want something like this being there. And that place is haunted. But it does make you wonder why they couldn't put like some sort of box fence around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a 20-foot high Bin Laden kind of fence, just to be like, okay, just you know.
With concertina wire around the top
Right.
of it. I don't understand. And it's not, hey, look, man, it's your world. I'm just living in it. I don't understand why they did it. Maybe they have a better explanation, other than it made people sad.
Yeah. Which again, I get that for college kids, but you do it to your point, and I agree with you. You have to think about the bigger picture here.
You have to. You only get literally one shot at it.
Yeah.
And if this had gone sideways, at any point in time, I think that would be a point in time that they would. And look, they talk about the Faro system that they walked in with. That's FARO, where this thing shoots thousands and thousands of images per second. It gives you a detailed digital reconstruction of the scene. I'm not going to say it's like the holodeck on the, Star Trek: The Next Generation, but they can recreate it.
Yeah.
And they create the doll houses that they'll bring in and kind of take the floors off bit by bit and kind of, but you'll never recapture what the place was actually like, in that sense. And I would think that you would want to have that in reserve. All right. It just seems like an unnecessary risk.
Now, what do we know? You had kind of gone through the possibilities of where you could enter this place earlier.
Yes.
And stuff like that. We went through the sliding doors. We had it up on the screen so people could see it as well. There's also the lower level up front where if it's unlocked, you get in there, or if someone knew the code, because all these kids knew the code, you get in there. But what do we... Where do we assume he first gained entry right now?
The sliders.
I assume the sliders.
The sliders. That's the second floor level that he parked up, probably behind. There's one way in, one way out.
So he pulled into the driveway.
Yeah, well, no, up behind, like up the hill behind, and then made his way back down the hill to the sliders, and he was able to enter through there.
And that's the vantage point where you could see into that third floor room from up there, whatever that is, that lot.
You're looking like this, and you're looking down that hill and into that third bedroom.
And that's a parking lot up there?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's an adjacent area up there where you can park your car and then turn around. You have to come back out.
Okay. All right, so he goes in there. As you've also laid out very well, this is a complex layout internally on the house, where the staircases are, where the hallways are, how you get from floor to floor. Once he comes downstairs and discovers Xana.
Yeah.
And then, therefore, Ethan might have been, we don't know yet until they release all the information, he might have actually been the only one who might have been sleeping. But Xana definitely wasn't. Once he discovers her, begins to stab her and kill her, then whatever ends up happening, he ends up killing Ethan right there. I imagine that happens in a relatively quick period, meaning it didn't take 10 minutes for him to do that. But he finishes that. Where does he exit the house?
He comes back out through the sliders.
Also through
and
the
that's
sliders.
when Dylan would have seen him. When he is exiting, she talks about how he passed by her. And
passed by her door or passed by her?
Passed by her. Her door was open like this. She looked outside of the door, and she's the one that heard someone say, and I'm paraphrasing here.
There's someone here.
That, and also, don't worry, I'm going to help you. And and that had been floating through the ether as well. So that in and of itself is troubling. And I've thought about this quite a bit relative to if we go with the idea that this is, first off, tinged with, a lot of anger and hatred because there seems to be a lot of overkill here. If there's some kind of sexual thing that's going on where, and you don't have to have sex for it to be sexually motivated.
Right.
You just rip the person to shreds. After killing 4 people, the question is, why didn't he kill Dylan?
Yes.
I think that probably he was completely spent. This is an adrenaline pump that he is on at this point in time. He sat up there. He's got himself worked up. He goes in there. You can say worked up, aroused, whatever the case might be. I don't know. That's for brighter people than me to try to discover. But he goes in there, perpetrates this crime on the 3rd floor, and then he's surprised. That's another boost of adrenaline. Right at that point in time, he knows that they can't escape. If he's going to get away with this thing, he's going to have to do away with them. That is Xana and Ethan. Maybe she retreated to the room. She's found in her room. She's been killed. Ethan's been killed. Now he's going to try to get out. And apparently, as he is walking down the hall, he looks right at Dylan. That's when she sees this. And she refers to it as a guy. He's got really bushy eyebrows. He's kind of an athletic built, but he's not muscular. I think she described him as like a runner or swimmer type body.
Wearing a balaclava?
Wearing a balaclava. Well, she didn't say balaclava. All she said is he had a mask, and I could just see his eyes. She also made a reference at some point in time, or somebody picked up on this, that they thought he was carrying a vacuum cleaner. And I've heard, and when I say that, which seems so bizarre, some people have wondered if he had an evidence vac with him. And I'm thinking that's something that we use to gather things up, almost like a handy vac. Mm. And if you can't make anything else out, why would you say he had a vacuum cleaner? It seems very specific. And no one has ever been able to kind of prove that. I think that that's not what she saw. It was something else, maybe the knife he was still holding on to, certainly absent the sheath.
This girl, Dylan, got a lot of, and this is the problem with cases like this. When they instantly go viral socially, you get all these internet detectives all over it, and it takes on a life of its own that's beyond the facts of the case. And when you look at the timing, she wakes up the next day, seemingly disoriented, like, I feel like something happened last night. I don't know. Calls her friend to come over. Friend comes over. Dylan is outside the house, and she's like, I don't know. Something might have happened in there last night. And then I believe that friend's boyfriend is the one that went in and first discovered them and came out and called the police. And so people are like, well, how the fuck could you not call the police at 4 a.m. in the morning when you thought someone was in the house and even when you saw them? In your experience dealing with criminal cases, though, and dealing with people who are shell-shocked at scenes and, something like this is completely incomprehensible to them, do you see that a lot of, in your opinion, is a lot of the behavior or, the way it went down from Dylan's perspective, and particularly even going down in the basement with the other roommate, pretty, I don't want to say normal, but pretty in line with...
There's nothing normal within this world. I've interviewed people in the past that were bordering on catatonia, where they're just they've got the 1,000-yard stare.
Yep.
They're vibrating like this. And the fact that, your brain may bear witness or something, or maybe your brain is creating scenarios that something awful has happened. And it just kind of goes into protection mode. And this is not like, we're talking about a college kid here that's never probably seen a drop of angry blood spilt, okay? And she's in this environment. There's no telling how anybody is going to react.
Right.
So the fact that this happened to me is not surprising at all. The troubling thing about it, though, is that you've got this gigantic window of time that has now elapsed from the moment that those souls departed this earth to the first time police put their eyes on their remains. And me, one of the things that we examine, or that we try to glean information from, are the bodies relative to postmortem changes.
Right.
And so that's going to skew data. And of course, time is very important here. Time is what this case is all about. When were these particular markers hit? And then you kind of go into this zero zone here where nothing seems to be happening, but yet the bodies are still changing at this point in time. Body temperature is dropping, rigor setting in, livor mortis is setting in. How are you going to be able to assess that? Well, by the time the coroner gets out there, the coroner will not have arrived immediately. They're still going to be even further down the timeline. So any kind of data that you're trying to establish that might help you to really zone in on the times. Thankfully, they kind of have these digital markers, like with the food delivery and all these sorts of things. But and certainly the CCTV of the girls at the food truck, that gives you kind of a back end time. But going into the front, if you're trying to adjust this to try to understand the changes that have happened, your data is really going to be skewed.
It makes it hard.
Yeah, it does.
For sure. The thing, and you actually mentioned it, unrelated, when we were talking about them raising the house.
Yeah.
And therefore you couldn't go in there and understand the sound and stuff like that. But that's the thing that really is so hard for me to understand. Mm-hmm. And again, my explanation is that someone is in a scared catatonia and they don't know what's real and what's not, which I think is a perfectly good explanation. However, if someone weren't in that, what makes it hard to understand is how, for example, someone like Xana, who is awake and has fight back marks, which means she probably screamed.
Yeah.
And it was probably not once. It was probably a continued scream or whatever. The idea that you wouldn't hear something like that is hard for me to put it in the shoes of someone else who was in there and try to understand what it would be like to be catatonic and not even be able to hear. You know what I mean? It's very hard to process.
Yeah, it is. And again, we don't know. Well, if you just take the example of Xana, okay, and you think about the injury she sustained on her hand, which are not postmortem injuries. These happened in life. There are focal areas of hemorrhage, I would assume. They're talking about these being defensive injuries. They're very deep. And then to boot, you've got all of the stab wounds that are being inflicted upon her. We still don't know anatomically what the wound track is either. Did he actually nail an area in her body that would have pretty quickly incapacitated her, where she's not going to make a noise? Was she so shocked by what was happening to her she didn't cry out? Because you're thinking this is kind of gymnastics you do, because you're thinking, okay, we've got 4 souls in this house. You're telling me that out of these 4 individuals that you don't have somebody screaming at the top of their lungs. And again, thinking about the 2 roommates upstairs. How much alcohol did they have on board? Was there anything that was impeding their physical ability to respond And again, we don't know.
Did he use a pillow too? You got to wonder that. Like you've seen, not even to get like Hollywood about it, but you see where people will sneak up on
Or
someone
did he
and
put his hand over their mouth?
Yep.
You know, but how are you going to do that with two individuals? How's one individual not going to be aware that it's happening to the other? You know, my fallback position is always, and I'm hoping that we're going to learn what the blood alcohol level is. How much alcohol did they have on board? They were ambulatory. It's not like they, you know, that they were, you know, passed out in an alley somewhere. I mean, they made it back home with that mystery driver that brought them home, who a lot of people were looking at early on thinking, and it was just kind of a goodwill gesture on that person's part to bring them home.
It was like the designated driver for the fraternity.
Yeah. And, you know, he got them back to their domicile and they're upright. They made it up to the third floor. So it's not like they're just completely passed out or anything. And again, hopefully those answers will be revealed.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.